Streets of London 5 continues where programmes 1 to 4 left off, with a selection of subjects we find interesting, in the expectation that you will too. Subjects like the Westbourne Park Open Day, buses running round the block in 3 different areas of South East London, and the latest crop of poppy buses. There's also some archive from the 1890s, and a roundup of the many new models introduced onto the capital streets in 2015. But we start with this. As we slip gracefully into our dotage and lose 1 million or more brain cells each day, it's easy to forget what many central London routes looked like before the arrival of Wright's new Routemaster, never mind remembering the order in which they were converted. So here's our easy to follow guide to Boris bus routes before and after, in nice neat numerical order. The old Route 8 was worked by an endless variety of stagecoach tridents based at Bow, occasionally updated by cascades as new vehicles appeared on other routes, or routes were lost. The western section of the H runs through the City of London, with its miniature police boxes in the middle of the road. This is Holborn Viaduct and the approach to Holborn Circus. Post-conversion and running in the opposite direction at Holborn, one of 34 LTs delivered in the summer of 2014. Bow Church, shown on the blind, is the last stop at the eastern end. Buses then run to the garage to stand between journeys. LT251 about to turn right into Bethnal Green Road at Shoreditch High Street Station. Route 9 is an even further stretch for the memory, as it was converted in the autumn of 2013. Before that it was mostly worked by London United's VLE type, refurbished at the most recent contract renewal in 2011. VLE 10 in the western arm of Aldwych. Westbound journeys start from the Strand. Another VLE passes the junction with the northern end of Waterloo Bridge. Another neat group of 28 vehicles converted the 9. LT73 emerges from Pall Mall and runs into Cockspur Street just before the Trafalgar Square stop outside Canada House. Route 10, another based at Turnham Green, followed the 9 in the spring of 2014 and was previously worked by a fairly new batch of Scania Omni Cities. The exit from Euston Bus Station. This one is Hammersmith bound in Gower Street by University College. LT164 in Kensington High Street. I never understood converting the 10 because it follows the 9 from Hammersmith to Hyde Park Corner, both lightly loaded for much of the day, and then follows the 73's LTs to King's Cross. This looks like the down market end of Oxford Street between Oxford Circus and Tottenham Court Road. Route 10 soaked up 26 LTs in the 140 to 170 number range. Route 11, London's much less expensive sightseeing bus, was the second full conversion to new Routemaster and was previously worked mostly by Go-Ahead's Volvo B7 Geminis. Weevil 3 passes a Stockwell garage mate in Whitehall. The initial batch of LTs and later additions amounted to 31 vehicles and included a Euro 6 compliant bus for evaluation. One of the main batch, LT62, suffered severe accident damage on only its second day. 2 years on, we're still waiting for it to reappear. Route 12 was formerly worked by a dedicated batch of second generation Geminis, both diesel and hybrid, based at Camberwell. Since their displacement, the diesels have been dispersed far and wide, and it would take a separate section of the programme to explain what they've been doing since. The conversion took place over a period of 2 months in the spring of 2015. LT 462 had the Trafalgar Square stop. The 40 buses of Route 12 were all built to the Euro 6 engine spec. LT 421 approaches the Margaret Street stop by Oxford Circus. The only building to survive the Great Fire of 1666, on the left, is passed by a pair of Enviro hybrids, delivered new in 2011-12 for the contract renewal of Route 15. This is Fleet Street. The 15's conversion came immediately before Route 12's, and the Enviros were reallocated to Leighton Garage for Route 56. 26 buses appeared at Bow in the spring of 2015, joining the earlier batch for Route 8. Needless to say, the two swap about. LT 415 in the not infrequent nose to tail on the approach to Monument Station. Long rumoured as a future LT conversion, Route 16 finally received its allocation in the autumn of 2015. The E400 hybrids, which should have worked the route before, not this Enviro obviously, transferred to the newly acquired 168 at the same time. Another diesel bus, well, this can't be right surely, pulls away from the Grosvenor Gardens stop. Around 13 brand new LTs appeared on the nominated weekend, September 25th, 26th, and the rest followed within a fortnight. LT 543, the first of the batch, at Marble Arch. LT 549 passes Her Majesty's back garden on the last half mile to Victoria. A Volvo Gemini hybrid passes under the North London line at Camden Gardens while working Route 24. Pre-Boris, this was another diesel hybrid mix like the 12, but operating from Holloway. Some of the 29 dedicated buses were reallocated to other Holloway routes, but the majority moved away to garages like Willesden, Alperton and Harrow. The first full route conversion to LT took place on June the 24th, 2013, from about 7:30 AM and went remarkably smoothly. A recent shot of the Victoria Station stop. The 24 also received an extra Euro 6 bus a year later. TfL insists that it's 100% LT 7 days a week, even if that means pinching vehicles from Route 390. The biggest conversion so far, in terms of vehicle numbers, has been the mighty 38, which received no fewer than 3 batches to add to its remaining prototypes. The story of its former DWs, and what's happened to them since, would also fill a separate section. Suffice to say, you can find some in Essex, and a much larger number in South London. The main batch of LTs, 191 to 238, arrived in the summer of 2014, and included these startling black buses promoting the Adidas World Cup campaign. This, however, is prototype LT4 in Rosebery Avenue. A more recent shot of LT194 after its repaint into red. It's followed by LT191 after its repaint into red. Whatever you can say about the 8, you can also say about the 55, assortment of Tridents, etc. This was the first conversion of 2015 and involved 39 vehicles plus a later top-up. Latent Scanias remain quite rare on the route, but here's one now in Oxford Street. A small batch of 5 LTs, 312 to 316, made up the required number. Here's 314 having a wander around the side streets after leaving Cavendish Square at the start of the eastbound journey. A brace up here in Bloomsbury. Some days the route seems mildly chaotic and could probably do with being cut back to either a Clapton or a Hackney start. Almost as massive as the 38s was the 58 vehicle conversion of the 73, replacing an equal number of late model Volvo hybrids. Some have since taken over Route 253, others have migrated to different garages. The route continues to operate from the former tram shed at Stamford Hill and maintains the previous 3 to 4 minute frequency in peak hours. As well as the dedicated batches in the late 400 and early 500 number series, 5 spare vehicles were pinched from Brixton's allocation as they weren't needed for the 137. Oh, and 517 to 542 have the much discussed leaf door mod at the back, which doesn't hit you in the face like the previous design. LT468 without rear door mod emerges from the continuing chaos of Victoria at the start of its journey to Stoke Newington Common, where these days it can rub shoulders with LTs on the 149. Camden Gardens appears again, but this time as the long-standing stand of Route 88. Almost anything double-deck on Stockwell's allocation would work the route before, including lovely Weevils. Oh, here's another one, running past the former Carrera's cigarette factory. A dedicated batch of Enviro hybrids was the official motive power. Meanwhile, back at the BBC, new LTs have now appeared. This conversion, involving 25 vehicles, took place in the late summer of 2015. Very late, owing to the ongoing ticket machine problem. LT486 emerges from Haymarket and runs into Cockspur Street. Because they don't have the rear door mod, all of these can appear on Route 11 with customer assistance if required. Pre-LT, the 137 was another right old mixture, with anything double-deck on Brixton's allocation likely to appear. This is a 2 Series Gemini in Knightsbridge. Another one in Sloane Street. Early series DWs also appeared, as well as Volvo B7 ALX 400s, and even earlier the Arriva specific DLA type. This was a very chilly winter conversion at the end of 2014, but it proceeded quite quickly thanks to a mass delivery of vehicles to Norwood Garage for commissioning. Originally, these buses were earmarked for the 159's conversion, but that was put back to December 2015 to allow for contract retendering. LT328 emerges from the Oxford Street stand in John Prince's Street. The Shepherd's Bush operated Route 148 was mostly on the cities before, although anything double-deck could appear. London United's third LT conversion was the first of 2014, and the route's former buses were refurbished and reallocated to the newly won E3. Unlike the 9 and 10, the 148 is intensely busy all day, every day, so it'll be interesting to see how well the new design copes with so much wear and tear, especially the interiors. The glass towers of Victoria Street provide the backdrop to this one. The 148 is now one of 5 routes running along Park Lane. Afternoons are best for the Hilton Hotel shot. The most recent conversion as we make this programme is the 149. In fact, it's only about halfway through as I'm reading this, so there's still plenty of DB300s to be found. The early ones, BW401 to 423, have already been displaced to Enfield. But they will still be circling the Edmonton Green roundabouts and bus station on Route 349. There will be 42 LTs when the conversion is complete. The first ones appeared in the middle of October, but it's been slow going because of the ticket machine shortage. This one has stopped short at Liverpool Street and has used the bus station to turn. Heavy traffic presents problems all along the route, especially at the southern end. Moving on, the 390, or the Route 24 donor as it's sometimes known. Holloway's second conversion at the end of 2013. Previously worked by anything double-deck on the allocation, including Presidents, it has lately reverted to Volvo B9 Geminis to make up the LT shortages. So shots like this were typical, but aren't anymore. "23 vehicles, LT95 to 117, accounted for a full conversion within the first week. although there was lots of spillage onto the 24 even then. This one is operating in one-person mode, but they are crewed from Mondays to Fridays. The Oxford Street Christmas decorations appear again as LT99 rumbles past. There was supposed to be a top-up earlier in 2015, but the expected vehicles went to Stockwell for the 88 instead. And finally, in numerical order, the 453, previously worked by London General's Mandela Way garage with a dedicated batch of Enviro 400 diesels, whose later exploits would almost fill a programme. A little further along the route, in Regent Street, this one is heading south. LT273 to 311 were introduced at the end of 2014, and 3 of them were painted white for various Christmas period advertising promotions. One of those, 282, still is white, or it was yesterday. The 39 vehicles continue to be based at Mandela Way and continue to run along Whitehall to Trafalgar Square alongside 4 other LT routes. By the time you watch this, there may be 6. For the 3rd year in succession, Transport for London lined up its poppy buses in the Westminster area for a photo shoot on a convenient Sunday in October. And for the first time, it was sunny. Here's the early arrivals beside the Cenotaph, led by Go Ahead's LT450. Like before, the LTs, 4 of them this time, had a full white background. The other types retained the usual vinyl wrap convention of a red front. A Berlioz 2460 arrives in Whitehall. Metroline's LT20 shows off the revised design for 2015, larger poppies and a different message. Stagecoach Enviro 10196 and London United's VH1 joined the lineup. The Royal British Legion launched the 2015 Poppy Appeal on October the 22nd, and the lineup took place the following Sunday. Coming up next, London United's normally silver LT150. Better suited to the job as there's fewer bits of red showing through. The bus is leading the start of the procession, which involved a few laps of Parliament Square. Go Ahead's LT450, normally found on Route 12, and LT20 again. Incidentally, the flags were out around the square before a state visit by the President of China. Approaching the square now is Leighton Garage's LT367, the only one of the 4 NRMs to be painted white before the vinyls were applied. The non-LTs swiftly follow. You will now see people trying not to appear on camera and failing. Sunday lunchtime may not be the ideal moment to hold this gathering, but the traffic could be so much worse on other days. And the idea is that the general public sees these buses and donates to the appeal. In previous years, the Plumstead Poppy mostly appeared on the 53, but the route was temporarily cut back in 2015 and no longer reached Whitehall and the Cenotaph. 10196 follows the others onto Westminster Bridge for the final lineup of all 9. The 4th Garage Open Day of 2015 took place on the 10th of October, and like the other 3, featured guest appearances by a selection of historic vehicles and rides around the local area following present and former bus routes. All these shots were taken early on the Saturday morning as staff prepared for the event. The garage building sits beneath the Westway, the elevated section of the A40 running from Edgware Road to Shepherd's Bush. Much of the parking area on the south side was taken over by Crossrail engineers at the start of work. It's where the spoil from the tunnelling emerged, but all that's finished now, and a revised version of Westbourne Park Garage is slowly taking shape. Excitement mounts at the imminent arrival of the battle bus on a low loader. The 100-year-old B-Type was still in the khaki paint scheme applied for its trips to France and Belgium for the First World War centenary commemorations. The London Transport Museum had kindly arranged for the bus to go on display at Westbourne Park. Something this rare and this valuable has to be treated with care, so the unloading proceeds at a slow and deliberate pace. The restoration of B2737 was completed in 2014, using original parts sourced from all over the world. Before the outbreak of war in 1914, there were around 2,500 of this type on London streets. At the time it was commandeered by the War Department, this particular one was working Route 9 for London General, and it was in that livery guise that it appeared at the 2014 Open Days. It's likely it will remain in this military condition until the end of the Great War is commemorated in 2018. Right, let's start her up. Yes, well, you wouldn't want to run if you were over 100, would you? After a little tweaking, she finally goes. You will gather immediately that the engine doesn't meet Euro 6 emission spec, or anything like it. the battle bus runs into the garage. That's Westbourne Park Station in the background. The bus went on display in the yard. Incidentally, the stencils stand for 92nd Mechanised Transport Corps. As is usual at open days, the regular motive power has been cleared out to make space. Fortunately, Tower Transit has plenty of parking at its temporary garage at Atlas Road, which took the overspill while the Crossrail work was going on. Older types like the Trident and Presidents have since been taken off Route 23, replaced by newer vehicles that became spare when the garage lost Route 295 in October. The Enviro 400s, both hybrid and diesel, remain the mainstay of the 23. Two more of the heritage guests arrive, both from the LT Museum's collection. RT4712 in Golden Jubilee colours and recently restored Routemaster 2. Still showing Route 406 blinds, I'm pleased to say. RM2 had long been stored out of use at the museum's Acton depot, but it was restored in time for the Routemaster 60 celebrations in 2014. The work was funded by the Friends of the Museum, and in the process the 1957 front end was refitted. Well, not the original obviously, but one of the same design. There's more shunting inside the garage to create another display and make room for walkways. The Marshall Capital 41424 was one of two similar trainers inherited from First Group when Tower Transit bought the Westbourne Park and Lee interchange operations. A varied lineup of types over the inspection pits. The Enviro Hybrid is having its starter batteries recharged. The allocation also includes a large number of early series Wright Geminis, mostly 10.1 metre variants. There's more of them out on the garage floor. You can find them on routes 28, 31 and 328, temporarily based at Atlas Road. The single deck Enviros work Route 70. The Routemasters indicate the garage's more recent heritage, Route 9H, which came to an end in 2014. Completing the lineup of types, the Volvo B9 Gemini 2. Another view of the building work on the former parking area. When it's completed, there will be a bridge between this point and the new building. SRM3 or RM1650 is another hangover from the 9H and is one of two of the former vehicles that Tower has bought for itself. Out in the yard, the lineup takes shape. One of the recent arrivals is DW15, a newly restored Dennis Dart's Wright Handybus combination, once found at Westbourne Park in the early days of bus deregulation on Route 31. Opening time 10:30, and a good crowd has arrived by local bus and underground. The Battle Bus attracted plenty of attention. And if you were really bored, there was always the Vision sales stand. RTW 467 scoots past on one of its free trips on local routes. Metrobus 1 sets off from the station while working part of Route 31. Daimler Fleet Line 2646, restored by Ensign in Schillerbeer colours. And in the opposite direction, RM 1005. I've no idea what this is, I only do red buses. Oh, hang on, I've just been told it's an Enviro 200 from the Whippets collection, which is owned and operated by Tower Transit in Cambridgeshire. And finally, a roundup of the departures, starting with the rather smoky Battle Bus. Putting it back on the low loader was a lot quicker than taking it off. The RT and the green RM looked as if they were leaving, but then did another circuit of the garage simply because they could. area focus this time is on southeast London, but with a difference. A series of 3 blocks, each bus heavy and interesting in their own right. We start with Croydon Centre, and this area near the library and the flyover, where 15 routes buzz past each other in various directions. This is Park Street, where the new Enviro MMCs of Route 109 terminate. 2492 sets off for Brixton, and we get a friendly wave from the driver. Buses from 3 through routes turn in from the main road. A line of 3 MMCs on the 109 stand, headed by 2506. There's more on the revamped Enviros in the new buses section at the end of the programme. Buses from the south turn into Catherine Street, then take this shortcut, St George's Walk, into Park Street. This is also how the 109s run round the block after coming off the stand. The once numerous DLA type was on its last knockings in 2015, with only a handful working on the 250 or the 198. Irizar Croydon operates the 166 with 10.2 metre Enviros and the occasional pointer. Metrobus Croydon is in a state of flux after its day-to-day operating past a London General. Many of the older Scanias are being replaced at some speed, and the 405 won't exist in this form for very much longer. One of the equally declining DW type overtakes on its way to Purley. A close-up reveals this is one of a handful with so-called cherished number plates, in this case from Routemaster 295. The 405 goes in front again and is followed by an advert for the night tube on one of the newer DWs. Route 60 has also been updated recently, with Gemini 2's transfer from North London, largely as a result of LT conversions. DW507, for instance, went new to Wood Green for Route 141, but was superseded in 2015 by Volvo hybrids displaced from Route 73. The 312 is almost, but not quite, 100% electric. Enviros continue to appear, as well as the occasional double-decker. A 109 appears from Park Street, turns left towards Croydon flyover briefly, and turns again into Catherine Street, the round-the-block manoeuvre I mentioned just now. Buses passing through pause briefly in Catherine Street at the Croydon Library stop. Both of these early DWs have come from South Croydon, past the home garage. They too take the shortcut to Park Street. The same stop from a slightly different angle. Abellio's Croydon garage at Beddington is home to a small number of Caetano-bodied darts working the 455. Following behind, another 10.2 metre Enviro on the 407. The distinctive stripes of Go-Ahead appear in the background on a President working the 468. Ten minutes later, an Enviro 400 in similar guise appears on the 468. 29 of these were once allocated rigidly to Route 345. Since their transfer to Camberwell, along with the route, they've become fully common user. Another Olympus body Scania pulls out from the stop on the 405. The silver fleet names of Metrobus have all but disappeared now in favour of the corporate go-ahead lettering. Once the traffic clears, this one will run straight to the main road before turning left opposite the Fairfield Halls. The same is true of the 119. Here at the end of the road is one of the Scania replacements, a Volvo hybrid with the street deck front end. It's followed by another electric on the 312. After the library stop, the 466 also comes this way, but will shortly turn again towards East Croydon Station. The same corner viewed from the other side of Catherine Street. Another of South Croydon's double-deck collection heads for Peckham on the 197. The Bromley manoeuvre is more of a wiggle than a round the block and allows the multitude of bus routes to avoid the pedestrianised section of the High Street. We've called it Bromley South because that's the name of the nearest station. The single-deckers used to be really interesting once, but now there's an awful lot of E200s. But a notable recent addition. This is the junction where Elmfield Road meets Kentish Way. One of the Volkswagen T5s providing the dial-a-ride service swings off the main road. Shortly after, a Scania omni-decker appears, roughly a third of the way through a Route 320 journey to Biggin Hill. This is old Metrobus with the silver name tags. We cross the road for a different angle again, as one of Bromley Garage's long enviros runs past on its regular Route 61. There are 10 of these, and they're the only 10.8 metre E400s in London, apart from the Spirit. Another of the street deck style Volvos comes the other way, from the Croydon direction. This is one of Metrobus's later E200s with the designer headlight slots. It's followed by one of the MAN Evolutions that have recently taken over the 246. Busy, isn't it? At the other end of Elmfield Road, northbound buses turn right where the High Street is blocked. A London length Enviro 400 on the 61. This is one of 16 new buses delivered to Bromley for the contract renewal of Route 208 in 2012. WHV 42, the first of the new batch on the 119. Now that all 39 have been delivered, there's enough to work this route and the 202 in their entirety. A Metrobus Dart Pointer on the 336. This contract is due for renewal in 2016, so these won't be around for much longer. Another slotted E200 on the 126, one of those weird Orpington and District style routes that somehow managed to soak up 11 buses a day. This one is coming down the High Street towards its last stop. Another one starts the journey to Eltham from halfway down the High Street. Now this is interesting. The single bus of Route 146 throws up an East Lancs bodied Dart. Most days it's another E200. Weevil 219, formerly of Camberwell Garage, is one of 21 Volvo-powered Geminis now working various routes from Orpington. Continuing down the high streets, we find another of the reallocated Evolutions, setting off on the 246. This one is so new to the route, it only has half a blind set. Bromley South Station will appear shortly. The 208s with the correct bus, heading south from the station stop. The 367 is worked by East Lancs Steams, mounted on darts, and is one of several Bromley North station starters. This one is turning right into Westmoreland Road. Another new Volvo emerges from Westmoreland Road after travelling from Croydon via Shirley, Addington and Hayes. Note the street deck style rear end as well. Another 208 swings round the corner after Bromley South Station and will shortly pass the junction with the other end of Kentish Way. This is another of Bromley's newest batch, 10139 to 154. Another early Mark 1 Wright bus stops by Kentish Way before climbing the High Street and passing Bromley South. Frequent fast trains to and from London and Victoria if you fancy a day out. The latest addition to the Bromley area, the Mercedes Citaros Route 358. 19 were introduced in the autumn of 2015 to replace Scania single-deckers. They are full-length 12-metre vehicles, but with seats throughout rather than the Red Arrow concepts of central London. I urge you to try them for yourself, because they are lovely. So, Orpington, a bit of a head scratcher because of the double runs serving the Walnut Centre. But let's try to make some sense of it. Here are some landmarks. 1. Orpington Railway Station and Bus Station. 2. The War Memorial. 3. Walnuts. And 4. Bus Turnaround Roundabout. This is the view from the bottom of the map, looking across the War Memorial roundabout towards the High Street. The latest addition to the Orpington area are the Mercedes Citaros of Route 358. Haven't we been here before? This one is starting a journey to Bromley. Buses in the opposite direction run past this roundabout towards the station. Another of Orpington Garage's Wright bus collection approaches on the town route R9. This one is coming from the station bus station and turning into the High Street on its way to Ramsden Estate. The R3 blanks all the double runs and turns south straight away. Emerging from the High Street, one of Plumstead Garage's Euro 6 hybrids working the 51. From the direction of the station, a Bromley Trident showing blinds for School Run 664, which it obviously isn't. There's lots of R's in Orpington, but the 9 is probably the most frequent. It can throw up pretty much anything on the local garage's allocation, although the double-deckers are a new development. Now here's some confusion. The incoming 358 doesn't go straight to the station, but detours via the high street to drop passengers off at the shopping centre. Don't believe everything the bus stop tells you. Not all of these go towards Chislehurst or St Mary Cray. Mech 57 sets off towards the Walnut Centre. In the opposite direction, an E400 on the 61, which runs straight through the high street without any mucking about. Route R6 in the high street, which does go to St Mary Cray and is mostly worked by dart pointers. R2 in the opposite direction, another through runner going south to Biggin Hill. And R11 running south towards Green Street Green, where you will find Orpington Garage. It meets another R9 at the start of its double run. The 353 is the third Orpington route on which the Weevils appear in this programme. A 358 approaches Crystal Palace bound and will turn right at the mini roundabout into Homefield Rise. See? The stop on the left is Walnut Centre and it's served by 358s in both directions. You can imagine how many people get on the wrong bus. So what do they do then? Well, I'll tell you. They run up the hill to a very convenient roundabout at the end of Homefield Rise and come all the way back down again. A left turn into the high street takes them to the War Memorial again, where they carry straight on towards Green Street Green. Orpington Station bound buses, on the other hand, use Gravel Pit Way. Whereas the R9s complete the full manoeuvre in both directions. Well, that's what they're supposed to do anyway. Weevil 215 approaches the Walnut Centre stop. Routes R5 and R10 both run from Orpington to Knockholt, but in a different order, by which I mean one goes to Knockholt clockwise, the other anti-clock. They share the same bus, which alternates between the two at a 75-minute interval. This too is very confusing. Stagecoach won these routes from Metrobus in 2014, and they work in tandem with R7 using the same pool of 3 dedicated buses. I said it was confusing. R5, R10 also work the double runs to Walnuts and come back down the hill from the very convenient roundabout. Other routes going to Orpington Station take a shortcut from the Walnut stop along Gravel Pit Way. Here, for instance, is R8, worked by the ever so tiny Solo SE. And to prove the point, here's an R9 emerging from Gravel Pit Way. At the War Memorial, it will run straight on and complete another journey at the station. R9s to Ramsden Estates, on the other hand, having done the Walnuts manoeuvre, turn left at the end of the High Street by the War Memorial and continue past Gravel Pit Way without touching the sides. Cranky, isn't it? But another really interesting day out for you. half-hourly fast trains from London Charing Cross. We kick off this brief section with RML 2444 at Faircross on the last day of Route 162. In a moment you'll see one of the Titans that worked the route from 1981. And East London Metro rider on Route 276 at Prince Regent. A Titan at Canning Town on the 58, in the last week before Upton Park to Canning Town was removed from the route. A Wright-bodied Dart on Route 62 at Faircross. And East London Titan in Stagecoach corporate livery on Route 174 at Dagenham Heathway. An East London Titan in red at Roneo Corner, Romford. An Ensign Bus Northern Counties bodied Bristol VR on Route 248 in Hornchurch. And from the same stable, an RT on the 246. An Alexander-bodied Metro bus operated by Capital City Bus in Upminster Road, Hornchurch. On the same operator's Route 348, a Leyland National at Roneo Corner. A Stagecoach Titan heads in the opposite direction on the 87. An Alexander-bodied Volvo belonging to Grey Green on the 173 at East Beckton. Capital City Bus has borrowed this Metro bus for the 252, Roneo Corner again. A Leyland Atlantean of London Country North East Thameside in Upminster Road, Hornchurch. Nothing at all like today's Route 370. And finally, another LC-NET Atlantean on the 370 in Lewins Lane, Gidea Park. ADL's much revamped Enviro 400 model, the MMC, appeared on London streets at the end of January 2015. When Abellio took over Route 109 from Arriva. 2487 opposite the route's former garage on Streatham Hill. The initial batch numbered 27, and another 20 buses followed in quick succession to the same operator. The 109's new buses, all of them hybrids, are based at Beddington Croydon, and several appeared on the garage's other routes, like the 157 and 407, before the official changeover. Because this was a contract change from one operator to another, a full complement had to be in service on the appointed day, a task which went surprisingly smoothly for a completely new design. After Abellio's hybrids, the next batch of London MMCs were delivered to Metro Line for the contract renewal of Route 332. It had been expected that they would go into the general pool of hybrids at Cricklewood Garage and appear on any of the central London routes. In the events, they've been remarkably sticky on the 332, with only the odd stray. TEH 2082 at the traffic lights outside Edgware Road Station. The bus has made its last stop and will now pass underneath the flyover and run to the stand overlooking Paddington Station. This batch of MMCs numbered 16. TEH 2066 makes its way gingerly along Westbourne Terrace, reopened to buses in narrow lanes in 2014 after several years of Crossrail work. The first trains are now only 3 years away. To Universal's surprise, the next batch of MMCs were built onto Volvo's B5 hybrid chassis, which we had previously seen only beneath Wright bus bodywork. Go Ahead ordered 16 for the takeover of Route 135 in May, and here's 2 of them passing in Bishopsgate. Go Ahead designated them EHV type, and they run from City Road Station to Cross Harbour on the Isle of Dogs. This one is working short to Liverpool Street and using the turnaround normally followed by the 42 and 344. The first diesel MMCs, as opposed to hybrids, turned up at Romford in June to work another contract game, the 498. Stagecoach ordered 7 and allocated them to North Street. This one is turning into Main Road at Romford Library, at the start of the very long straight line to Brentwood. At the time Go Ahead took over the route from First Group, the 498 was extended from Romford Station to Queen's Hospital. 10305 completes the southern section and pulls in for the station stop. At present there are no plans to add to the 7 diesels. The next Enviro 400 MMCs for Stagecoach London will be Volvo hybrids. You'll already have seen Wright's new look bus in the Bromley section. Go Ahead originally ordered 39 for Putney routes, but they were diverted at the last minute to Croydon to speed up the replacement of old Metrobus Scanias. So far in 2015 they've converted routes 119 and 202 and also appeared in 1s and 2s on the 64 and the 127. Once they get out of Bromley, the street deck lookalikes run through some very pleasant country around the Hayes area. They've been joined on the 119 by the Volvo diesel demonstrators trialled on London routes in 2014 by Metroline and Irizar. The 2 have been renumbered in Go Ahead series as Weevil 509 and 510 and look at first glance like the Gemini 2s in GA's fleet. As for the street deck proper, you will have to go to Brighton or Edinburgh to see one of those. It's unlikely that London operators will order them because of the heavy emphasis on reducing exhaust emissions with hybrids. Then there's the 2-door new Routemaster we keep hearing about, which should be here in 2016. There are more of the Volvos in the pipeline for Go Ahead, for Route 93 at Sutton and perhaps the 155 at Merton, unless they get diverted again. The 19 Euro 6 spec Citaros for London General Metrobus appeared in a very short time frame, but this may prove to be a one-off. There are no other orders outstanding for the type for any London operator, and next year's replacements for the Red Arrow Citaros at Waterloo will be Chinese electrics with ADL bodies. So it may well be that the Bromley Orpington area will remain the only place where you can sample the updated Citaro. They also run through attractive scenery, like the Kent village of Farnborough. Most days you'll find the entire batch on the 358 at one time or another, and so far there have been no strays onto other routes. I did spot one at Waterloo the other day though, but it was just visiting, not working the 500s. Meanwhile, back in Romford, Stagecoach also won the 499 from Irizar, providing a perfect opportunity to introduce ADL's revamped single-decker into London. There are 8 of these, and they're also allocated to North Street. Like the 498, this is another that's quite challenging to film once it leaves Romford. This is the infallible Western Road, the bus circulatory system. 36 is a new series prefix set up for the MMC 200, but it won't be confined exclusively to London. The 498 runs south from Romford Station for several miles and completes the circuit of Beacon Tree Heath before heading to Dagenham. I still haven't fully figured out the northern section, but I know it goes to Tesco's at Gallows Corner. A quick visit to North Street Garage now for a look inside the E200 MMC. There were 3 off the road on this particular Saturday, replaced on the routes by the so-called classic Enviro 200. The front-end styling differs subtly from the double-decker, and because it's Stagecoach, there are no identifying features like a model name or an ADL badge. Although you can see the layouts, the blanket application of corporate seats and poles rather masks some of the new bus's design features. The driver's cab with the obligatory ticket machine. As well as the 499, the new buses have also made one-off appearances on the 296, which provokes another standard bus substitution on the proper route. And finally, some cutting-edge technology, to wit the Irizar entry in the full electric stakes. Although at a rumoured £1 million each, you do wonder how many of these will end up in London. Whatever, 2 of them were introduced on the 507 and 521 in the summer, and not surprisingly, they bear a striking resemblance to the many Irizar coaches you see on the road. EI1 and EI2 enter service in June and July, and like the BYDs that preceded them, they've had their troubleshooting gaps. The problem for Irizar possibly is that the order has already been placed for the Red Arrow replacements, but having the chance to test a new design in the rough and tumble of London operation must be valuable in itself. Next on the electric fronts will be the ADL Virtual Electric double-deckers, to be trialled by Tower Transit on Route 69, and the long-awaited BYD double-decker, weighing in at a massive 20 tonnes and entrusted to Metroline. Both of them, however, will have to wait, along with the beautiful MMC City, until the next edition of Streets of London.